I am so excited to dive into yet another epic Rebel Radio conversation with my dear friend, Heidi Isaac. She is my friend, my colleague, and a former client. Actually, you're a client right now, too. You're all the things, Heidi. Welcome to the show. I am so glad that you're here today.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here.
So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do. Who is Heidi?
Oh my, that's a big question. I am a Reiki master, and I'm also a coach. I'm stepping into the world of coaching and healing. And so I'm a healer and also a guide for creation. So my journey has been a lot of healing, a lot of trauma. I've worked with you. I've gone through the Brain Game, Mind Shift, a lot of amazing programs. And through that, I realized there's such a need for healing, but there's also the need to step past that and to learn that we are creators and to get to create whatever we want in the world, which is something I'm hugely passionate about.
Oh, I love that so much. I just got total goosebumps when you said that because, you know, there is the need for healing. Absolutely. And we need to hold space for that. But there comes a point in your healing journey where it's time to step beyond that. It can get really addictive, that healing energy, right? And if we step beyond that and realize that we are whole, there is nothing wrong with anything, and that we can just create whatever the fuck we want. Like, woo!
It's magic, and you can do both. Like, that's where I love, like, I can hold space for someone to be in healing and to start creating. We don't have to be all the way healed to create this magical life. So I'm healing yesterday, and today I'm creating, and you know, and then I get to bring people along on that journey. So I'm super stoked about having that opportunity. And yeah, it's a really cool world we're in right now.
Right? Oh my gosh, I love it so much.
Me too.
So before we went live, I was sharing some of your numerology, and numerology to me is one of the biggest tools that I use for creation. And I'm curious, what was some of your biggest takeaway from understanding your numerology?
Well, you were the one that taught me numerology and did my numerology with me when we went through the Brain Game. So I'm a ruling number 8. And I was just reviewing some of that stuff this week and looking at the number 8. And there's so I can have whatever I want in the world. And I've always had that belief, which when I look at the journey I've taken, I had some pretty deep knowing that I could do whatever I wanted to get me through the things I did. But 8s love to tell stories and to make up stories and to create this whole thing that's not real. And that is my biggest challenge of like, I don't need help. I'm going to do it on my own. And this is what that person's thinking. And then that trips me up. So just the awareness of that has been huge, because now I can catch that story really quick, step back and be like, no, that's not real. Check in, and then go forward with that knowing of, you know, I actually can have whatever I want.
Yeah,
so
I love that.
Really cool. And I sent my brother his numerology report like a long time ago. And for whatever reason, it sat until I think it was yesterday. And he read it. His wife read it to him. And he said, that's the most accurate, like, me description I've ever had.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it.
That's what I love about numerology is it is the purest form of personality assessment that I've ever seen. And I've taken a lot of them, and it's just so accurate. And one of the things I always say is you can't make this shit up. Like, it's so on point. I love that.
And there's so many layers. Like, that's just like the basic numerology. And then there's, you know, like the soul contracts, and like, there's just so much that I'll let someone else do that. I don't have an interest in learning a whole bunch more about it, but I love receiving the information.
Yeah, there's a lot of rabbit holes that we like to go down as numerologists. I'm constantly geeking out on the numbers. I love it. Yeah. So this journey of self-mastery, I've witnessed you grow and expand so much as you landed into self-mastery. And I'm really curious how you define self-mastery.
So my version of self-mastery has been learning that I am source. So I'm really connected to a higher knowing. It's like a God source for me. Mm-hmm. And it's outside of me and in me. And just knowing that I can always be my own base. So my own stability, my own truth, my own knowing, it's here and it's there. And I constantly have access to it. And everything from there is okay, no matter what comes my way, no matter what I experience. And it's also shifted me into that life is happening for me rather than to me, which is such a beautiful place, because I was a victim my whole life, like so victim-y.
Yeah, and that's an 8 thing to do as well, that victim. For sure. Yeah, and I think, the understanding that source energy, I want to talk about that a little bit, because some of our audience may not resonate with, universe, God, source, whatever that label is that we choose to use. I choose quantum energy. There's lots of different names that we give it, but I believe that it's all the same. It is that higher power that we're not at the whim of, but we are a part of, and we get to choose to partner with that energy. And in that, we can create whatever the fuck we want.
Yes.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter what you call it. Like, it can be a connection to nature, or even just like your own innate knowing inside of you. Like, it doesn't have to, God can be super triggering for people.
Yeah.
I get that. I was raised really religious and like went on a no God thing for a long time. And now, that word is okay and safe for me, but it can be whatever.
Yeah. It's just a name. That's all it is.
It's trust, right? It's trust in.
Yeah. And it's this sense of knowing that you're never alone, that no matter what's going on in your world, you've always got a partner with you. Always.
Yeah.
Oh, that feels good. I love it. I love it.
Me too.
So another conversation, and you'll love this as an 8, that we love to have at Rebel Radio, is this conversation around wealth. And this can be very triggering for some people, because wealth is a word like, oh, it's bad to have money. It's bad. But I'm curious what wealth means to you.
So wealth to me, which has shifted hugely in my work with you and in all of the work I've done in the last year, wealth to me is the ability to have incredible connected experiences. So it's not just about having the dollars in the bank account. It's about being able to say yes to the trip to go and spend time with my favorite sister-in-law, or to take the kids diving, or it's all about experience. Yes. And so even if I were to live in the most magical house, I want it to be on the water, because that's incredibly important to me.
Yeah.
So it's really about experiences and like epic, extraordinary experiences, not just like run of the mill, like, I want that out of a book. I'm like, no, I want to feel this way when I walk out the door. And I want to have this emotion when I live with this person, or that's wealth to me. It's like in every cell of my body all of the time.
I can feel that. I'm just like covered in goosebumps right now. That just feels so good. And understanding that, money is just a tool to help us provide those experiences and those connections, right? And I've always said this as a wealth activator, that money is a side effect of how you feel on the inside about all of that wealth, right? And so the more you create those experiences, the more you connect in with the emotion of that, the money just shows up, because it wants to play with you in those experiences. So it's funny, I all the time get people like, really, you're talking about money? I'm like, well, yes, but no, I'm not really.
Well, and that's the thing, because it doesn't take the same amount of dollars, because it's not like, oh, I want to make 10K this month. It's which do you want to experience? And some of us need $1,000 to experience the thing, and some of us need $100,000. So there's no difference. The joy and experience is the same. Exactly.
It's just about the experience that you want, and the money shows up, whatever dollar amount that needs to be, it will be there.
Yes. And you taught me that, and I love that shift. Like it's been so amazing for me. And I know I have so much to grow into with that. Like I'm just at the beginning of this new understanding of wealth.
Doesn't it feel good though to not be like, I remember 2 years ago, I was so attached to the physical dollars and just constantly setting these goals for financial attainment every month, and then not hitting it, and then being disappointed, and then beating myself up, and then when am I going to get money, and how am I going to pay like all the stories, right? You'd think I was an 8 too, but I'm not.
Well, that's what we've been taught. It's like, do the dollar and like write it down and like get the dollar, it's such a,
it's a mind fuck.
It is a mind fuck.
Yeah.
And unlearning that is big.
Yeah, it takes some work. Takes some work, but oh man, is it ever worth it to do the work?
I know, it's so amazing.
Yeah, so good. So good. So what has been something that you've discovered about yourself along this path of becoming an entrepreneur and stepping into your creative power? What's something that you've discovered about yourself that's supported you along the way?
One of the biggest things is that I can give myself the thing that I need. And yes, I do reach out and I need help, but first check in instead of just like quickly like, oh, Cindy, help me, or Joy, or anyone, right? Reaching out to that person that I think knows more than me. It's like, no, I know. And then I will ask for support from that place. So that's been a huge shift, taking a step back, prioritizing my emotions, and then taking action, which you talked about in the brain game. And like, that's been huge for me.
Yeah. Good old PETA. It'll save your ass every time. Always. I love that so much and we do talk about that in the brain game. That's one of the key pieces of the brain game. And I know for myself too, I used to just like T-Rex brain all over everything and then be pissed off for the rest of the day. And I couldn't figure out why I was so miserable all the time. And I was like, oh, because I'm totally avoiding all of my emotions, right? That's what society has taught us to do. So really that checking in of like, what's really going on here? I love that so much.
Yeah. It's been
so
huge.
Good. So what's one truth that you wish every entrepreneur knew?
That you get to create the thing that you want from within. And I know I keep saying this in this conversation, but I'm so fucking passionate about this. The truth is here. It's not out there. It's not from someone else's course. Yes, take the trainings, do the things, but start here and check in. What do I want? Even if it's never been created out there, you don't see anything like it, go fucking do it. Now is the time. Yes. This world needs all of the new ideas and all of the new magic and all of the new creations because everyone is looking for some help, some new way to be, some new way to heal, some new way to show up in the world. And so just coming from within and creating the thing, even if it's never been created before.
Oh, yes. And that brings me back to that conversation about source in the beginning, right? And this is something that I've been understanding on a deeper level and really playing with is the difference between manifesting and creating.
Yes.
And manifesting is resourcing, right? You're calling in something that's already been built, right? Well, I'm manifesting my rent money. Well, that money's already out there. So you're not creating it, right? Mm-hmm. The creation is using and connecting with that source energy and really understanding that you're creating and generating that within you first. And everything that's happening outside of you is a reflection of what's inside. We create, we don't manifest.
And that's where I was having some conversation with some friends yesterday. It's like, we've had all these amazing things we've manifested in the past, and it's been super fun and interesting and amazing. But when you step into creation, it's like, that's where the emotion, the feeling, the experience comes in rather than the thing, the house, the boat, the trip.
Yeah.
It's like you get those, but the most important thing is how you feel when you do it and what you're experiencing when you do it. And then from there, it's just like the sky is the limit, right?
Yes.
Well, there is no limit.
There is no limits. The sky, the atmosphere, space, we just keep going.
It's just possibility. And it just blows my mind. It makes my heart just explode with where we can go with this.
Yeah, I love that.
And we're just getting started, right?
We're just getting started. The awakening is here. Oh,
I know. I love it. And I love that we get to do this together and have these conversations. It's so amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So with everything that's going on in the world right now, I mean, we've been in the middle of a pandemic for 1.5 years at the time of this recording. There's all of this stuff happening in the news politically, the education systems, everything's crumbling around us, or so it seems, right? And I'm curious what you would share with our audience about, how to navigate that.
Again, for me, the biggest message is coming back, checking in, stepping back from the fear, from the social media, from the news, from the, what everyone else is telling you, and check in with that little, even if it's not this big knowing, like that little spark in your heart, like, what do you think is true? and then going from there. And instead of worrying about what everyone's thinking and what will other people think of me if I do or don't, just checking back in, like, what do I want for myself? And I'm a mom of teenagers. So then for me, it's like, what do I want for them to show up in the world? And how do I want them to go forward? So that's a big motivator for me, of checking in, like, is it what's outside of us or is it what's inside? And it's always what's inside, right? It's always that we know so much more than we think we do.
Right?
Ourselves. We need to trust our truth.
Yeah. So let's talk about that just for a second, because there's a ruling number 8 who loves to tell stories. How did you learn to trust yourself? How do you know that it's a true story or it's a story?
For me, it's very like, the story is here, the truth is in my heart. So I've had to learn to discern between those two. So if it's feeling very mindy, that's not a word, but it's my word today.
It's one now.
And
she's creating. She just created a word.
Making shit up as I go. I always have to come back to here, because that's where the truth is. And I've really learned to cultivate that, like, not daily, but sometimes hourly and minutely.
Yeah, right. I've noticed that too, of like the check-in happens on a minute-to-minute basis, and especially on a rough day. It's like, okay, wait, nope, that's a story. That's not true. Nope, that's bullshit too. Nope, that's bullshit too.
Yeah. And sometimes just for me, I have to back right away and go do something. Like, sometimes it is even putting a show on just to stop the chatter.
Yeah.
Or like reading a book that's just a novel or something, just to, because sometimes I can't get that to shut down as quick as I'd like to.
Yeah.
So it's just really learning and awareness, just awareness of my patterns and my stories and my journey has helped shift that from here to here.
So good. Focus in on the heart. The heart always knows the answer.
It does.
Yeah. I love that. Heidi, I have loved having you on the show. I feel like I could talk to you like all day long. Well, of course I could. Yeah. But as always, we end the show with one last question. What do you dream of for the world?
I dream of a world where we trust our hearts and we in with our hearts, and we make decisions from our hearts. And yes, our minds are important, but if we can just trust our hearts and be in our hearts, kinder and more accepting. And that's my dream for everyone.
Oh, love it so much. Thank you so much for being on the show. I love you. I'm so glad you're here.